Traditional power stations generate power by burning fossil fuels to boil water into steam, which turns a turbine, generating electricity. To understand why we would want to use nuclear power instead, here is a graph showing the fuel energy density of coal, oil, and natural gas. Here is the same graph showing the value for uranium on the right. Nuclear power takes advantage of the enormous amount of energy locked within radioactive materials, but this process has its own complexities and risks. First, we should look at how nuclear fission extracts energy from our fuel. For large atoms, the forces trying to push them apart can exceed the forces holding them together, causing them to be unstable and radioactive. Most reactors use uranium as fuel, which is split into two isotopes, uranium-238 and the much rarer uranium-235. Uranium-235 is a fissile isotope. This means that if its nucleus absorbs a neutron, the resulting uranium-236 is too unstable to exist, and will rapidly split apart into two smaller atoms alongside 2 or 3 loose neutrons, and several gamma rays. This process is known as nuclear fission. Notably, uranium fission produces more neutrons than are required to trigger it. This makes the reaction potentially self-sustaining, as uranium atoms are split apart by neutrons produced by other uranium atoms in the same material. The goal of a nuclear reactor is therefore to maintain a constant rate of fission so that the reaction does not reduce to a uselessly low level or increase to a dangerous rate. The core of a nuclear reactor, shown here, is split into 4 basic components: the fuel rods, the control rods, the moderator, and the coolant. The fuel rods contain pellets of uranium metal or uranium oxide. Depending on the reactor design, this may have a natural uranium-235 percentage of 0.7% or be enriched to a higher percentage of 3 to 20%. The control rods are placed between the fuel rods. These exist to absorb neutrons passing between the fuel rods. The control rods can be raised to increase the rate of fission and lowered to reduce the rate of fission. For safety, reactors are designed so that continued power is required to hold up the control rods, meaning that in a power cut or emergency, they fall automatically, halting the fission process. The moderator exists to slow but not absorb neutrons. Neutrons produced by fission typically travel very, very quickly, but this speed makes them difficult to be absorbed by atoms, similar to how it's difficult to park your car if you're moving at 60 miles an hour. Through repeated collisions, the moderator slows down the neutrons that move through it so they can be more easily absorbed by uranium nuclei. Graphite is a common moderator material, but heavy water can also be used to serve as both a moderator and coolant instead. The coolant, usually water or CO2, serves to absorb the energy released by the fission process. This keeps the fuel at a safe temperature and helps extract energy from the reactor core. The hot coolant is cycled through the reactor to transfer its heat into a separate water cycle, which is then used to turn a turbine, generating electricity. To keep the coolant cold, excess heat from the second water cycle is transferred to seawater, which is itself cooled down through cooling towers, releasing water vapor. 3 separate coolant loops are used to prevent radioactive contamination with the environment. There are other safety features that I've glossed over for brevity, but the important thing to note about nuclear reactors is that they are a reliable source of energy that does not produce carbon dioxide, which makes them uniquely useful to tackle the climate crisis as their output is not dependent on weather, unlike many other renewable energy sources.